for treats. He was here hassling me for treats. He's like, yep, give me a treat. Okay, World War III update. Possibly the most terrifying World War III update I'm going to be I've made to date. If all the reports that I'm hearing are true. Whoa, wow, scary. These are dire times. Like Gerald Celente says, when all else fails, we go to war. Okay, a U.S. top commander, her name is Cole, has been fired for refusing to launch a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. Yeah, I said that out loud. Yeah, I said that. Looks like, remember about a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, Vladimir Putin was off clubbing baby seals, wrestling with bears, making babies with new wife, fighting aliens in outer space, helping baby great white shark's teeth and all that. And then some said he had back problems, others said he was sick, some said he died, this, whatever, and he was gone for 10 days. And right at the end of that, around that 10 days time, which was last Monday, I believe, he comes back, but we hear about this mysterious possible air war going on in the Arctic with the RCAF from my country and possibly other British and whatever involvements. And on top of that, we go to DEFCON 3, which means all airplanes, NATO airplanes and U.S. airplanes would be on a 15-minute warning launch time to respond. So that's a pretty... When you get into DEFCON 2, you have constant patrols. Now, we're now, as of today, we're back at DEFCON 4, which is, okay, there's a lot of activity going on, but, nothing that's of cause for alarm, but there's things going on. Okay, no big deal, right? But did this air war happen? We don't know. There's a Sky King warning system. There's a video out there, and the pilots were speaking French, but they were speaking too fast. And my French, here in Quebec, we don't speak France French. We don't speak Persian French. We speak Fringlish, half French, half English, Quebecois stuff, okay? ST. Okay, so I wasn't able to quite decipher what these two pilots were saying. It sounded like they were tracking something, and whatever it was they were tracking was doing a lot of course corrections, possibly bombers, maybe fighters. I'll put the link down below if I can find it again, but I'm pretty sure by the time you see this video, everybody's going to know about it. But I'll put it down there, and if you can decipher exactly what because these guys, they don't sound like they're calm saying, move heading 230, okay, it's now moving, 235, okay, we'll intercept at 234, or 240, whatever. Okay, he's at Angels 25 or Angels 40, whatever. It's not that. It's Roger this, Roger that, kind of thing, but in French. So it does sound like there was a bit of whatever the excitement was. Again, this could be a part of a drill that's been taken out of proportion, which I'm kind of hoping that's what it is. That it was people, making the training a little bit more realistic, but the people who basically listened over the comm waves just taking it out of proportion, and there's actually no threat whatsoever. But let's look at this realistically. What do we have going on in the Arctic right now? We still have, and again, this is something I've been saying for a long time. Watch these big warfare drills from country to country. They're not so much warfare drills as they are on patrol, like Operation Dragon Ride. So do something. The Czechs aren't very happy about having U.S. armored vehicles kind of going through. Czechoslovakia. Now, if this was just a friendly exercise, why would the United States put out a thing saying that if anybody interferes with this Operation Dragon Ride, the soldiers, if these convoys are like basically protesters attacking with Molotov cocktails, they can open fire in a foreign country, basically, rather than retreat and get the hell out of Dodge. Basically, if they're putting out alerts like if the troops feel threatened, they can respond with lethal force in a foreign country. That suggests to me they're on patrol. This is not a drill. It's not a... Get my garlic in there. It's not something that's stall time. This is serious. The Russians have told the Danes that their navy could be with nuclear force in the event of, war. Now, on top of that, with this drill going on, the Russians have, they say 10 days ago they figured out that there was a plan to have a limited nuclear strike, which there's no such thing as limited nuclear strike. It goes full nuclear. The Russians are not going to say, okay, you scared us now. You fired a nuke at us, we take it, you're serious, we're going to back out of Ukraine. They're not going to do that. They're going to give us a sledgehammer response like they do to everything. You put night vision goggles on a Ukrainian soldier, you get a T-72 coming in on the other end to counter it. You see what I mean? Their response is over the top. And the U.S., there's assumptions out there that possibly Obama has lost control of the military, which, no, he hasn't. Obama was never in control of the military. The banksters are. So, with that said, could that 10-day absence, are we going to see on the Discovery Channel 20 years down the road how this was another kind of brink moment where NATO was clashing with Russian fighters up in the Arctic during this drill, which is not really a drill? Was the RCAF literally intercepting bombers? We don't know. Are they going to tell us? Absolutely not. It's not the embarrassment on the world stage, it's that pissing contest thing that goes on there. They say, well, if the Russians were making excursions into our borders, we have to, hit them full force. There's nobody in their right mind that's going to really want a war with Russia. Nobody in their right mind. Which brings me to my next... The elites are clinically insane. These are the ultimate of psychopaths. Sheldon Adelson, I like using him as an example. It's not that when they say it once or twice, it sounds like a joke the first few times you hear it, but when they say it over and over and over again, you really got to start questioning the sanity of these people. It's like, just to show the Iranians we're serious, let's put off a nuke in the desert just so we can show them that we're serious. Well, this is how these military generals are responding to the whole Russian thing. Well, if we set off a nuke in their backyard, they'll take us seriously. No, they will respond with full force. The idea, and again, there was a U.S. general saying this, look, if we go into the Ukraine and kill every Russian soldier we find and just send body bag after body bag after body bag home, the Russians will lose their steam for it, the people at home, there'll be regime change in Russia. Let's say hypothetically that worked, which it never does, because they keep trying this and it doesn't work in Syria, it doesn't work in Libya, it doesn't work in Iraq, it doesn't work in Afghanistan. Pick a country, right? Who takes over from Putin? Who's the scary bastard that's going to take over from Putin if Putin is taken out or overthrown? This is what they don't question because they're too fucking stupid. Sorry for the language, but when people are this idiotic, it's like, what do you do, right? But that's how these so-called elites and U.S. generals are thinking. Now the problem is the Minsk agreement for peace in the Ukraine, again, is bomb shelters are being prepared. They're being prepared in Russia. They're being prepared in the Ukraine. Ukraine has said, we want our air raid shelters ready for mass air raid attacks from the Russians. Why would they be saying this if they were working on a peace deal? No, it's time to arm up. Rich oligarchs that have, in the Ukraine, that have private security are no longer allowed to have their own private security. That security force is now going to be put on the front lines as an army. Weapons are now unofficially going to the Ukrainian military, so the United States, well, they have been arming them, but apparently it's becoming more obvious to the Russians that, yes, the U.S. is directly arming the Ukrainian military. Okay, and the Russians have told us what the response to that's going to be. The Tartars have been saying the Crimea is starting to look like a Russian military base. The Russians are building up there. Again, they know where the offensive is going. The offensive is to take Mariupol and then get into the Ukraine, into the Crimea. The Crimea is a hotspot. That is a full-out kind of shit hits the fan kind of scenario. Now let's get back up to the Arctic. The Arctic chatter up there, apparently the codes were put out, and this general, she refused, or this commander, she refused to execute the codes. She would not send it. Otherwise, we could have just had a war, if this is true. That said, apparently she's being held. I don't think this woman is ever going to be allowed to go near a camera. I'd be surprised if she doesn't just disappear. We know about the over 200 generals, particularly all the purging that Obama has done in the past 4 years. all those generals that were purged, remember, the 5 missing nukes at Dyess Air Force Base are still missing. Okay, we don't know where those are. Better put the dots together. We also know that Russia is basically, they've figured out that there was going to be a limited nuclear strike on Russia. They've moved all their bombers, they moved all their Topol Ms are probably, they move every 15 minutes. You can't track those. You can't track, you might track 1 or 2, but you can't track something that moves every 15, 20 minutes, even half an hour. These things are going to end up in Cuba. They're going to end up in Venezuela. Make no mistake about that. That's where they're going to end up. Why? Russia is now going to be, like I say, a couple of updates ago. Russia is now looking like it's starting to call NATO's bluff. Okay, Europe is terrified. European leaders are terrified. There was a German TV show interviewing a Ukrainian official talking about the Azov battalion neo-Nazis in the Ukraine, and the guy more or less said, yeah, well, they're there. They're not as in big numbers as people think, but the guy's like, he says, they're all over the place. What are you talking about? The German host, like, they're all over the place. What are you talking about? He goes, yeah, but they get the job done. So again, we can confirm, yes, the United States, with George Soros funded money, is back neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. There's, because they're getting the Azov battalion hasn't been taking as many losses, but I'm sure they don't. Again, I don't think Poroshenko has that much control over these guys anyway, which makes them a wild card in the long run. Next to that, we have again Russian bombers moving towards NATO defenses to be very close to NATO borders to be able to react to a full-out war. Russia's already said, "Hey, look." Our nuclear forces are ready. They're ready. We will not be the ones to initiate World War III, but if it's initiated, it's going full blown. We're not messing around. I believe the Russians on that. I don't think they'll be calling the bluff after the first nuke goes off. I think at that point it's, missile, missile, missile. Jacob Rothschild. We're in the most dangerous time in history, just like before World War II. The parallels between the beginning of World War II and the beginning of this is almost identical. Yeah, some details are a little bit different. The U.S. banking system is completely failing. Country after country is starting to join the BRICS nations in Russia and China as an option to the IMF. The IMF is full of Rothschild lunatics and supporters of Zionism. So we're looking at all that going on. Again, these communications, very kind of eerie. Like there's one that's just a long code coming out. Don't know what it is. Again, maybe we're lucky and it's just a drill, and we can take that into consideration. But if not, again, I'll put the link of the video down below. It's very interesting. If anybody can decipher the French pilots, if you can decipher exactly what they're talking, but to me, I heard a lot of numbers, so I'm thinking it sounded like they were tracking something that was moving, not in a straight line. It was probably, okay, the fighters are splitting apart, I got one high, got one low. It sounded kind of like that, like a dogfight. Doesn't mean there was actually anything shot down. If there was a Canadian pilot, because we have so few pilots here, it'd be very hard to hide a CF-18 getting shot down over the Arctic. And I'm going to say this very boldly, and I know a lot of people might laugh at this, but this is true. I don't think it's very easy to shoot down an RCAF pilot. There's so few of them, but they're so well trained. I mean, these guys fly. I've seen, the Canadian Armed Forces they're amazing soldiers. They're amazing pilots. They're amazing seamen. They're amazing. But there's too few of them. That's the problem with the Canadian military. There's just too few of them. And the Russians, their Arctic warfare drill going on now is almost triple the size of our entire forces, including the desk jockeys. So we're not ready to fight with these guys, and yet we're being pushed into it by complete utter lunatics. I mean, if the Russians, there's enough espionage going on. I think if this is true, what we're going to see is a lot of people dropping dead after this at high levels. Vice presidents, people in the Duma. You're going to see people, generals. You're going to see people disappearing, dropping dead. Why? Because I think if this is a failed attempt, I'm thinking the next thing you're going to see is possibly a U.S. military coup in the United States. Because it's going to go one way or the other. This is the problem with revolutions. If they're taking back the republic, okay, you might be fine. Nuclear war will be escalated. If these guys are hell-bent on killing the Russians, yeah, Houston, we have a problem. So, again, there are people out there that are lunatic enough to pull this off. Fortunately, one of them wasn't. But this is also another problem. This could have been the Russians, and this would be Russians. One thing, I don't know a lot of Russians, but any time I've ever worked with Russians, the first thing I've noticed was their lack of self-preservation. Especially if you're on a construction site, these guys are like, they'll like do this to change a light bulb on the top of a ladder. You know, like they just no sense of self-preservation. So I can imagine they fight the same way. You know, just whatever, all or none, right? You know, Spetsnaz. You need, okay, Spetsnaz. Canadian Armed Forces. You have 12 hostages and 4 terrorists. Bring 4 body bags. Spetsnaz, you have 12 hostages and 4 terrorists. Bring 16 body bags. Problem solved. You know what I mean? They just function differently. You know what I'm saying? But with that, again, what the Russians, again, calling the bluff of NATO, they might actually have said, okay, well, if they're planning to push us to the brink, to get us to respond, what we'll do is come at them unexpected and blow their own plan. Again, to me, there must be moles within both agencies. I mean, the U.S., I'm sure, again, the technology, they give it to Israel. Israel sells it to China. Well, then the Russians have it. You know what I mean? They do deals with each other, right? So I'm pretty sure the Russians have, got all kinds of communications that probably, or just general observations saying, we think they're going to be doing this, let's get ready for it. It's Cold War, so we're in a Cold War, you know. So it's okay. Let's call their bluff on. We'll do the Arctic drill. We'll make them panic, force them to stand down a nuclear attack, and then after that, again, once the shield wall is broken, it demoralizes your military. You know what I mean? Like it's after that, it's like okay, we know how far we can push these guys now. That's a safe zone. So maybe the Russians are pushing it. You know, maybe they're pushing it to say, okay, well, if NATO wants to, again, they want to give night vision goggles to a Ukrainian soldier, we're going to give a howitzer and a T-72 to the DNR, you know what I mean? But now, again, whether it's propaganda or not, some of this stuff is also coming out of Russian intelligence putting this out. Now, again, because there's no good guys and you can't trust anybody, it could be also, with what's going on up in the Arctic, stuff we can't see, it could be also, too, that they're, propagandizing, say, no, well, all this stuff is going on when it isn't. And then they get a hold of, which I hope it'd be that, they get a hold of, some pilot communications of the RCAF. Because you have to understand, when the DEFCON 3 warning came out, it came out on transcripts from the RCAF. It was something to do with my Air Force, or not my Air Force, but, well, technically as a taxpayer, it's kind of my Air Force. But it had something to do with that. So to me, what that suggests is, yes, something happened up in the Arctic that we're not privy to, we won't be privy to. And if something did happen up in the Arctic, if this was ever a convincing argument for me to tell you to put food away now, you didn't hear about it on the mainstream media, okay? Now, are you going to go with the idea, well, it's because it didn't happen, that's why you didn't hear about it on the mainstream media, or are you going to possibly entertain the idea that even if the mainstream media knew, they would not tell you? So, these are things to consider. And if you pick number B, and if you pick that one, then you have to look at it this way. If this thing goes hot, you're not going to know about it. You're going to have a very short amount of time to respond to this. Because again, the Elite CS, most of them will be flying by helicopter to their bunkers. But a lot of them will also be using their limos. They don't want the highways jammed up with John Q. Public trying to find their way to a safety area when this goes on. Just look at 9/11. Everybody was in their bunkers before the attack happened. Open source. Not even conspiracy on that one. That's not a conspiracy. That's open source. They knew about it moments before it was going to happen, or about a half an hour. Well, they knew about it right. But the average politician that ended up in the bunker found out that an attack was imminent, and they were whisked there. Streets wide open, traffic flowing. None the wiser. Had that been nukes instead of a terrorist attack, well, that tells you right there, no, they will not warn us. They're not going to warn us. It's not in their, they don't care about us. It's never about the safety of the public. You should know this by now. I mean, the fact that they're trying to push a war with Russia, anybody that can't see that they're trying to push a war with Russia, I don't know what to tell them. I mean, yeah, the Russians aren't saying sure, but the initial is really not Russians. The Russians knew in the Sochi Olympics that there was going to be a counter coup in Ukraine, or a coup in the Ukraine. The coup was pretty much open admitted on several official fronts, including Victoria Nuland. So it was a U.S. Ukraine, it was a U.S. coup in Ukraine. Okay. Now the other thing we have to factor in is once the Russians figured this out, because they already had control of the Ukraine, they took it to another level. They counter coup. Now you have a civil war going on in there, and with that going on, you now have again Holocaust bunkers all over Europe being ready, particularly in Eastern Europe, ready for a major war. Why? Because of the spring offensive. It could happen anytime. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in a couple of weeks from now. The spring offensive in Ukraine has been talked about. This is a line in the sand for Russia. Hence, I think why we went to DEFCON 3. Watch the DEFCON system. Problem with the DEFCON system is it's not very clear of why it could be, several different forces could be at several different DEFCONs at the same time. So the Air Force might not be on alert, but the Navy might be, the Army or the Marines might be on alert, but not the Rangers, that type of thing. So when we're looking at it like that, it's a little bit tricky to track, but keep an eye on it, just to give you an idea that something's up. Something's up. If these reports are correct, about this general, if she didn't give the command codes, that means there was a failed attempt at a preemptive nuclear strike. And we know, I know I have a lot of American viewers, but the U.S. government is not exactly not known for doing preemptive strikes on countries. You know what I'm saying? So is it believable? Highly believable. But is it absolutely confirmed? No. I can't confirm it. But if you've been following this channel for any length of time, like I said, since 2010, we have not been moving away from a war. We've been moving towards a war. There's other people out there saying that what they might be trying to do is completely implode the U.S. economy so that they could just basically drop everything off and go back to a gold standard and basically forgive the debt. Completely bankrupt the country, forgive the debt. I don't believe that one, and here's why. It sounds nice because it makes it sound like they're actually trying to do something good, but they're actually not. No. And here's why. Because they could do a debt jubilee. And you wouldn't be trying to push a nuclear war with Russia, not even as a bluff. You know what I mean? Because you wouldn't bluff it to this level. And again, watch the troop movements. If you think these military drills are normal, if you look at any other time in history, record-breaking military drills, one after another. The United States, China, Russia, even countries like here in Canada, we've had our biggest drills last year. We'll probably have even more bigger drills. We are living in very dangerous times. And again, it's not the fearmonger. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not talking about puppy dogs and bicycles here. I'm talking about a pretty scary subject. Now, again, if there was more communications that could be available where you could confirm that airplanes were shot down in the Arctic, that would be great. The only thing that led people, I think, from the reports that were talking about it was that the transponders were going off. And, but if you were a combat airplane, okay, your transponders are on. Now, NATO and Russia, NATO has been making us think about Russia turning off their transponders, how dangerous it is to aircraft, commercial air traffic and stuff like that. They do this, but this is nothing new. NATO does it. All military airplanes shut off their transponders. Why? Well, think about it this way. Let's say you're a sniper and you're in the bush and you're wearing a big orange vest. People are going to pick you up pretty quick, right? You're going to put on camouflage. Well, turning off the transponders is kind of like a camouflage. You want signal jamming, sure. And we know what kind of airplanes are up in the Arctic right now. There's Frogfoots, there's Tu-22 Ms, which are all nuclear capable, except for maybe the Frogfoot, but the Su-24s, I can imagine the Su-34s and Tu-95s are up there. But if the Russian bombers are moving towards NATO Again, you have to understand these things. They can launch cruise missiles 600 to 1,600 miles out from their target. Like in the, NORAD's always said, the Russians would probably come straight over the North Pole with their Air Force, which the good news is it gives you time to shoot them down if you have air defense systems in play. Hence why they told the Danes, if you get onto that missile shield system with the United States, you could be involved in a nuclear holocaust. We'll consider you a threat too. So again, the Russians are, they're going to shake the nerve of many NATO countries. I think NATO will fall apart over this. That's what Russia wants. But the thing is how are they going to bring about unless they call NATO's bluff? Problem is if there's psychopaths on one side and psychopaths on the other, and both have to be right, it's the 50-50 bluff. Either we win big or we lose everything. That's the way it's going to be. Again, with the transponders going off on exactly which aircraft, I'm not 100% sure on, but it does look like something happened in the Arctic. I don't think it was just a drill. I think it was probably a mass bomber excursion just to kind of wake NATO up and NORAD up saying, hey, yeah, we're here all at once. And that's, at some point, pilots are going to start talking to their families. No matter how professional the pilots are, no matter how professional the soldiers are, somebody always talks. The family of this commander, I'm sure they probably got a gag order on her. I'm sure they probably got all kinds of anti-terrorism things saying, yes, we'll make your family disappear. But I bet you her family members are going to come out and say, no, my mom or my wife or my aunt or whatever, she avoided a nuclear war with Russia. I think the people are going to side with that. This is a huge, if this story is true, if this story is 100% true, and the public does get wind of it, main channel, government is going to be in a lot of trouble. This will work advantage for the Russians 100%. I'm thinking most people are starting to catch on that the U.S. desperately wants a war with Russia. The whole thing in Ukraine was never, ever, ever about helping the Ukrainians. And I'm thinking most of the Ukrainians are, yeah, they hate the Russians. They got bad blood that goes back many, many years. Sure, fine. But a lot of them are probably not stupid, and they're probably saying, hey, yeah, Poroshenko isn't our fearless leader to help us out. And the IMF and signing the deal with the EU hasn't helped us out. In fact, our country's even worse and getting even worse and worse and worse. And we're on a possible, war front of Europe, with Russia, So at that point, it's like, what do you do, right? They want to go to war. And the Russians aren't backing down. Again, when we look at who's in all these other countries, it's, U.S. imperialism versus Russian imperialism is kind of, regime here, regime there. There's no good guys. I know there's some people that are Putin fans out there. I'm more inclined to believe Putin than I am Obama, but at the same time, I do know that this guy knows how to manipulate people as well. He's got teams of people that work on it. The Obama administration has teams of people that work on it too. Problem is, they're just not believable. The difference between Russia and the United States is the Russians are actually telling the truth to get public support. Hence why Putin's, even if his numbers aren't as high as they say they are, again, for Ronald Reagan, I think was the highest approved president in history and politician in history with something like 53%. Most politicians can't break the 40-45% approval rating anywhere. Unless you're Kim Jong-un, which is so fantastic when you get 100% of the vote, stuff like that, because people love you so much. Yeah. So I'm not saying that Putin isn't doctoring that, but the Russian nationalism, again, right after Putin's disappearance, what do you have happen? You have Russian military parading all throughout Russia and in all the major cities. You have government buildings with tanks in front of them. Does this sound like just something to, now mind you, Victory Day is, they have, stuff like that going on. Sure, yeah, and the Russians do put on parades quite a bit, but at the same time as the Arctic drills, at the same time as Putin's disappearance, at the same time as, and just this, and all this weird kind of chatter that's flying about, not just in the armed forces, but just, throughout politicians that are talking about, hey, look, European governments are terrified right now. They know they're on the brink of a war. They know this war could start like that. Most people have figured it out. The Crimea is again, when you have the Ukrainians go in there, they're going to be slaughtered en masse by official Russian soldiers. There's going to be Russian armbands on there. There's going to be Russian, Federation flags on the tanks there. They will then roll into the Ukraine. The Ukraine is not a part of NATO, but yet we're arming them and training them and stuff like that in Poland. But once we start arming them, the Russians will have justification once the Ukrainian military makes a move for the Crimea. Even if you don't agree with it, right now you have to keep in mind the Russians consider the Crimea a Russian sovereign territory. It's like Hawaii to the Russians. Okay, so that's the best parallel I can make. Hawaii is a part of the States. If the Chinese came in and started landing in Guam and then hopped over to Hawaii, Guam is considered a U.S., very U.S. friendly, but Hawaii is a state, right? It's a floating state. Well, Ukraine is viewed in the same way. It'd be the same if the Russians go into Alaska. Alaska is a state, but it's not attached to the mainland United States. There's a still tiny country in between called Canada. That type of thing. So the Russians are looking at it the same way, and they will defend it the same way they would their own sovereign territory. But the trick is, and again, this could be the U.S. trying to force Russia to come out of the Crimea so they can have justification to go into the Crimea and put NATO missile systems on the borders. This idea is insane, insanity times 10. And I think if a nuclear war does break out, at that point, I think it's weapons free on all these elite mental cases, because they're going to kill humanity, is what it is. I'm not telling anybody to go out and do anything stupid, but you know what I mean? In the after fact, I think then, yeah, you have justification, go Mad Max on them, you know what I mean? If you're alive, that's a big thing, it's if you're alive. But yeah, this is some very terrifying information. This is probably the most alerting thing that I've reported on in the past, all my World War III updates. Yeah, there's been some pretty scary stuff, but this is terrifying if it's true. But the timelines are matching up. I mean, Putin was gone. Maybe he could have been in his bunker. Again, mysterious disappearances of elites heading to their bunkers. We know about Davos. One lady was commenting on Davos how, the whole talk was very, very, everybody in Davos was freaked out. The millionaires are freaked out. They're like, they're going to get us all killed. They're going to get us all killed. We don't want a war. Nobody wants a war. But the elites do, because they think they can survive it, come back up, and just restart the system again. They're completely nuts. Even if they survive it, they're never coming out of those bunkers again. Because the second the list, there's enough people in the know, they will have a list. And these people, they're going to know where the bunkers are. Why? Because they're going to be people like this general, or commander, who's in the know. Say, well, I know who ordered me to launch. She knows who said to launch. And think about it this way. You can't launch a nuke without the president's authorization. So, does Obama have control of the military or not? Yes, the Republicans pretty much control the House and the Senate. And yes, they are neocons. And yes, with them in power, you're more likely to have a war with Russia. But you also have to look at it, both sides of the aisle want war with Russia. John Kerry can't express himself enough about a war with Russia. McCain's just a freaking utter lunatic. He wants everybody to go to war. Like, we gotta arm everybody. Where's my great white whale? Lunatic. Captain Ahab reference there. So, I don't know about you guys. I'm going to be chilling down on a nice big pot of spaghetti. But get the spaghetti while you can. Best kind of stuff you can get. Ah! Oh, if nuclear war breaks out, don't forget cat treats, because they'll be really ticked. It's too early for treats. Can't have them yet. And you're interrupting my video. Be gone with you. No. So anyway, as I was saying, yeah, put food away. Rice, it's cheap. Buy it now. Buy it while it's cheap. Buy it while money is still flowing. Barter and trade is not something that we're used to. Working out the equivalencies of what's worth what, that's going to be a painful, long thing to figure out. So you want to have your food and stuff like that, because you'll probably be bartering, trading with food. Bullets and bread. I'm not against gold and silver, but bullets and bread, I think, are the key to have these type of things. Limited nuclear war, I think it would go into the mad scenario. I think the people that should be the most on alert is people in England, because apparently a lot of this stuff happened very close to you. That said, obviously, over the Arctic here, the Russians are all over that. The bombers, who knows where they are? The Topol-Ms, who knows where they are? The Iskanders, who knows where they are? The warships are kind of more trackable. Again, let's watch the U.S. commanders. Listen to their rhetoric. What are they saying? What are, a lot of them. Remember General Dempsey stepped down just out of nowhere about 2 months ago. Now the rumor is, maybe this is true, maybe this is not, that he did it because this was planned in such advance that he wasn't going to go along with it. Because he just out of nowhere just quit. When you have, your main general of the Obama, and look at all the people that have been jumping ship from the Obama administration. In these kind of powers in the past year, people just jumping ship. Look at here with John Baird, our foreign affairs minister, out of nowhere just ups and quits. I've got time for a life change now. Maybe so, but maybe he knows something that we don't. Again, right now there's another Canadian Arctic war drill going on. It's the COMEX. Is it COMEX drill? I don't know much about it right now, but notice all the Canadian activity in the Arctic. We haven't been like that since the last Cold War. Here we are picking sides in the Ukraine where we should be, and going after ISIS. I say, screw ISIS. Get our CF-18s back here. We have too few of them to begin with. We don't have, our second line of defense and fighters is going to be French-made Alpha jets if we still have them in the country. We have about 100 there. We have about 100 to 140 CF-18s. We have 2 tribal-class warships left. Third one's damaged. We have 12 frigates. Some are under retrofit right now, or refit. We have, Navy-wise, yeah, the Russians outnumber us Navy-wise, but I think we could, go okay with the Navy in a lot of ways, because we do have maybe about a third of the size of the Russian Navy. The difference is their warships are a little heavier armed than ours. Their missiles are a lot more advanced than ours, hence why our Halifax frigates are getting retrofitted. That's basically all we have. Our biggest problem here in Canada, we have like almost zero air defense. That's going to be the biggest problem. The bombers will be able to, you have to understand, from the northern Arctic down to here, that's like, I don't know, I know it's like a 23-hour drive from here to almost northern Quebec. You know what I mean? So you get an idea. It's quite far. It's like 600, 700, 800 miles just north. Those bombers can cover that in an hour or two. And if you have nothing to shoot them down, now mind you, yes, the fighters could take them on, but the problem is when you send 1,500 to 2,000 bombers out all at once, coming in at all different angles, you just can't intercept them. Yes, the Americans have a lot in Alaska. They got missile systems there. That's good. But where our biggest problem is on the East Coast here, where we don't have quite as much. We have a lot of stuff to detect them. So this is where we're advanced. We know where they're going to be. That type of thing. But right now, our submarines, we only have one that's on active duty. The other 3 are online, but they haven't done their sea trials yet. Who knows? It could be a trial by fire. You know what I mean? Hopefully not. But and again, I get from time to time, because I understand like service members have agreements and they can't talk about this stuff and stuff like that. But sometimes ex-forces guys can give me some heads up on, you're on the right track on a lot of this stuff. Some stuff you miss, and and if I'm wrong and you can disprove anything I said in this video, please do so. I'd be very, very happy if you did. Because, well, considering the alternative, I think it's, again, I do these to be as informative as possible, to be as factual as possible. But like anything on the internet, or what my grandfather used to say, only believe half of what you hear, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. So, considering the sources that some of this is coming out of this Sky King communications, some of this is coming out of, the Russian spy agency, and a lot of this is coming out on mainstream media. So we know about Putin's disappearance. We know about the Arctic drills. There's plenty of footage up there. So we know these things are going on. We know about the transponders being shut off, possibly, again, people referring to it as a possible air war up in the Arctic. But again, if we were taking losses, it's not, things like that have happened before where a few jets get shot down and then, both sides will brush the incident under the table. Or airliners or whatever. But again, they're not going to warn us. So again, have your food, be prepared, stock up on ammo. It's a bad time in history to be anti-gun if you're anti-gun. It's again, if we're going to end up in a red dawn scenario, Venezuela, they know that the U.S. is trying to do a coup there. They're gonna welcome Russia with open arms, big time. In Venezuela, they're pretty much hardcore communists down there. Right now, their food system. They're putting in a fingerprinting system, or a finger identifying thing, so that government-owned grocery stores, you don't buy more than what you're allowed to buy. Communism, you know what I mean? Everybody's equal as long as I have more. The politicians, none of them are in the interest of the people. If they were, we'd be moving away from war. The Minsk agreement is just to get ready. Again, look at all the stuff that's being rushed around, all the remobilization of all the stuff in the Ukraine. It's getting ready for the spring offensive. The Russians have talked about arming the Ukraine, could have disastrous conflicts. They're willing to go nuclear over the Ukraine. I already believe the nukes are in Ukraine. Topolam's, video footage of Topolam's like a year ago, coming in with the S-300 missile systems. That's already there. So who knows how this would play out, but it could be a flash in the pan. Maybe what happened in the Arctic was a flash. Maybe it was just one drill got too close to the next drill, again, a flash in the pan incident. Maybe this was an accident. Maybe this was just all staged. Maybe it's propaganda. Maybe it's real. We don't know. So these are things to keep an eye on. What we can say for sure is that there is Arctic drills going up. At the same time, Canadian Arctic drills. There's Arctic drills. Norway is doing Arctic drills. All that. We know about the Dragon ride through Eastern Europe with armed U.S. Rolling mechanized armor rolling through, like the Czech Republic and places like that. So we know about all that. Is it a hard line to draw between that and this incident? Again, hopefully we can get a better confirmation on. I think if we can confirm 100% that yes, this Commander Cole did refuse to give out nuclear launch codes for a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia, if it was foiled by her and we can confirm that, then that tells you the exact agenda of the U.S. government and how deadly that could be. Now again, like everything, until we can prove it, who knows, right? But at that, am I inclined to believe it? Considering how many regime changes the United States has done, to me it's not a far stretch. But that's me. You believe whatever you want to believe. All I say is, until we know exactly what's going on, which we never will, it's good to be prepared. Put food away for you and your family. Have a plan. Don't panic. Live your life. I mean, these are things we don't have control of. People are too apathetic. There's enough people, I think, awake now that if they were to do something, they could do something. Guys like me, nobody's going to listen to me until after the fact. But after the fact, no one's going to listen to guys like what we have running the country now. That system is going to disappear within 25 years, whether it goes out in a big ball of fire or just a human wave of pitchfork revolution coming for the elites, such as they were talking at Davos. Again, this Davos meeting really, I think, told us that we're going to war. Again, when people lose everything, they lose it. But when the government loses control of the banking system, when all else fails, we go to war. So I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to help support the channel. Thank you very, very much to everybody who has. I don't know how to reply to people who send me my donation, but if you would like to be mentioned in the video or something like that, just send me like a little message here or whatever, and I'll gladly mention you if you'd like. If you want to remain anonymous, that's great too. But thank you anyway. Every little bit helps. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, take advantage of the comments. Maybe you think maybe you have a link to something that disproves everything I just said. Please share it. Please, please, please. Maybe you have something that confirms everything I said. Please share it. It's not just for me, it's for everybody. Share it for everybody. Because it keeps everybody in the know. To me, the message is much more important than the man. I don't care about taking credit for anything or anything like that. I just follow this stuff to connect the dots so that at a later time, things usually just slap together. Okay, it makes sense now. So something that might happen that's out of the ordinary, you have it in the back of your mind, you heard about it 2 years ago, but now it makes sense. That kind of thing. So it's connecting the dots. Also check out my WW3 updates page on Facebook. You can go put geopolitical things relating to World War III on there. No fart jokes, just geopolitical stuff. Again, follow that. It's usually these videos that just go on there, but other people do put on some good links on there too. Sometimes I can't follow everybody's links, and sometimes I can't keep up to everybody's comments. I usually try to at least put a thumbs up on your comment if I read it. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me, but if I don't comment back to you, please don't take it personal. It's just sometimes I just don't have, plus I don't have internet at the house anymore. I have to go to the public library, so to speak, to do my uploads. So, time is, I only get about a 3-hour span per day to during the week to spend on this. So, so if I don't get back to you, please don't take it personally. But thank you, and I'll always try to get back to people as much as I can. Next that, be true to yourself, be true to others. Always, always do the right thing. And be careful while you're watching the show. You may just learn something. Have a great day, eh? Hey, hi, and welcome. No treats for you. Too early for treats. He was here hassling me for treats. Saying, yep, give me a treat. Okay, World War III update. Possibly the most terrifying World War III update I'm going to be made to date. If all the reports that I'm hearing are true. Whoa, wow, scary. These are dire times. Like Gerald Celente says, when all else fails, we go to war. Okay, a U.S. top commander, her name is Cole, has been fired for refusing to launch a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. Yeah, I said that out loud. Yeah, I said that. Looks like, remember about a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, Vladimir Putin was off clubbing baby seals, wrestling with bears, making babies with new wife, fighting aliens in outer space, helping baby great white sharks' teeth and all that. And then some said he had back problems, others said he was sick, some said he died, this, whatever, and he was gone for 10 days. And right at the end of that, around that 10 days time, which was last Monday, I believe, he comes back, but we hear about this mysterious possible air war going on in the Arctic with the RCAF from my country and possibly other British and whatever involvements. And on top of that, we go to DEFCON 3, which means all airplanes, NATO airplanes and U.S. airplanes would be on a 15-minute warning launch time to respond. So that's a pretty... When you get into DEFCON 2, you have constant patrols. Now, we're now, as of today, we're back at DEFCON 4, which is, okay, there's a lot of activity going on, but, nothing that's of cause for alarm, but there's things going on. Okay, no big deal, right? But did this air war happen? We don't know. There's a Sky King warning system. There's a video out there, and the pilots were speaking French, but they were speaking too fast. And my French, here in Quebec, we don't speak France French. We don't speak Persian French. We speak Fringlish, half French, half English, Quebecois stuff, okay? ST. Okay, so I wasn't able to quite decipher what these two pilots were saying. It sounded like they were tracking something, and whatever it was they were tracking was doing a lot of course corrections, possibly bombers, maybe fighters. I'll put the link down below if I can find it again, but I'm pretty sure by the time you see this video, everybody's going to know about it. But I'll put it down there, and if you can decipher exactly what because these guys, they don't sound like they're calm saying, move heading 230, okay, it's now moving, 235, okay, we'll intercept at 234, or 240, whatever. Okay, he's at Angels 25 or Angels 40, whatever. It's not that. It's Roger this, Roger that, kind of thing, but in French. So, so it does sound like there was a bit of whatever the excitement was. Again, this could be a part of a drill that's been taken out of proportion, which I'm kind of hoping that's what it is. That it was people, making the training a little bit more realistic, but the people who basically listened over the comm waves just taking it out of proportion, and there's actually no threat whatsoever. But let's look at this realistically. What do we have going on in the Arctic right now? We still have, and again, this is something I've been saying for a long time. Watch these big warfare drills from country to country. They're not so much warfare drills as they are on patrol, like Operation Dragon Ride. So the Czechs aren't very happy about having U.S. armored vehicles kind of going through Czechoslovakia. Now, if this was just a friendly exercise, why would the United States put out a thing saying that if anybody interferes with this Operation Dragon Ride, the soldiers, if these convoys are like basically protesters attacking with Molotov cocktails, they can open fire in a foreign country, basically, rather than retreat and get the hell out of Dodge. Basically, if they're putting out alerts like if the troops feel threatened, they can respond with lethal force in a foreign country. That suggests to me they're on patrol. This is not a drill. It's not a. It's not something that's small time. This is serious. The Russians have told the Danes that their navy could be a part could be strike with nuclear force in the event of, war. Now, on top of that, with this drill going on, the Russians have, they say 10 days ago they figured out that there was a plan to have a limited nuclear strike, which there's no such thing as limited nuclear strike. It goes full nuclear. The Russians are not going to say, okay, you scared us now. You fired a nuke at us, we take it, you're serious, we're going to back out of the Ukraine. They're not going to do that. They're going to give us a sledgehammer response like they do to everything. You put night vision goggles on a Ukrainian soldier, you get a T-72 coming in on the other end to counter it. You see what I mean? The response is over the top. And the U.S., there's assumptions out there that possibly Obama has lost control of the military, which, no, he hasn't. Obama was never in control of the military. The banksters are. So, with that said, could that 10-day absence, are we going to see on the Discovery Channel 20 years down the road how this was another kind of brink moment where NATO was clashing with Russian fighters up in the Arctic during this drill, which is not really a drill? Was the RCAF literally intercepting bombers? We don't know. Are they going to tell us? Absolutely not. It's not the embarrassment on the world stage, it's that pissing contest thing that goes on there. They say, well, if the Russians were making